This special 3-part series of Bonn Park is supported by HIP Developments, a real estate development company that goes beyond building real estate. HIP believes it's their job to help build cities, especially in Waterloo Region, which the company and many employees call home. Real city building requires collaborative effort and infrastructure for the human spirit, the kind of things that bring us all together and celebrate our inventiveness, diversity, and allow us to discover collective joy. Mel Brown was and still is part of that collective joy waiting to be discovered through this broadcast. Speaking of joy, HIP Development's president, Scott Higgins, recently published a remarkable new book, The Joy Experiments, starting a new conversation on city building. The book invites all of us to consider the importance of our communities, what they can do for us, and what we should be doing for our cities. Pick up your copy at thejoyexperiments.com. It's a joyful read, we promise.
Yeah, Mel Brown and me, man, we from the first time he came here, he used to play on Queen Street there, and they had a tuning night. And so I came there, that's where I met him. And from I met him, he's just like, he called me on stage without even knowing who I am, you know? And then from there, every time he's playing and I come down, call me up, hey babe, you know, get on stage and jam with him, you know. It's really, that's like one of the greatest musicians, you know, and so humble. The greatest are always the humblest, you know.
This is the voice of reggae artist Errol Blackwood, sharing some memories of Mel Brown.
Legendary blues musician Mel Brown brought the sound of the Mississippi Delta to Waterloo Region. And although Mel himself is gone, his legacy lives on. In celebration of that legacy, the region was recently home to the inaugural Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium, and it happened May 27th through 29th, 2022, at the Jazz Room, Maxwell's Music House, Kitchener Public Library, and the Museum.
I was born on a mountain in Waterloo Region, Jamaica. Papa was a preacher. Mama used to say, I come, I see, yeah, I write and I sing. I come, I see, and I write and I sing. Ooh, it's not just the preacher, not just the congregation, it's the man. Ooh, kill the prophets and they come in his name. He bring monuments of war. Oh, but I come, I see, yeah, in my right and I sing. I come, I see, yeah, in my right and I sing.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's awesome. Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward, and we are so honored to be sharing with you
Part 1 of our special 3-part series on the inaugural Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium. Here we go.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Can you do us a favor?
Can you please leave us a 5-star review, like or subscribe to our show, and share with your friends? We'd also love it if you followed us on social media.
We are a homegrown community project, and every bit helps. On with the show, this is it.
I'm just your fool, can't help myself.
still love you, baby, and no one else. I ain't crazy.
We're going to be hearing from Lee Willingham. He's a professor of music at Wilfrid Laurier and also the director of the Laurier Center for Music in the Community. Then we're going to be hearing from Carlos Morgan. Carlos is a Canadian soul and rhythm blues singer. He's most noted for winning the Juno Award for Best R&B Soul Recording at the Juno Awards of 1997 for his album Feelin' Alright. Carlos is also responsible for the inception of the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium and key to its role in our community. He is the curator and artistic director of the event. So blues legend Mel Brown was the driving force behind a blues revival in our area. Mr. Brown brought the sound of the Mississippi Delta to Waterloo Region. As a renowned guitarist, Mel Brown collaborated with great acts like Etta James and B.B. King, among others, and decided to put his roots down right here. And his adopted hometown of the Waterloo Region loved Mel Brown. In an interview, when asked how he'd like to be remembered, Mel Brown said, "If my music could touch somebody's heart and bring you closer to love, then that would be it." People need to take time to think about what love is and how they can insert their love into life. Now let's hear more from the organizers.
Thank you, and it's great to be here with you and with my good colleague, Carlos Morgan.
Yes.
We're really excited about a whole bunch of things around this festival and symposium that address what we think is something really missing in our community, and that is a focus on a feature of Black culture and Black music with some incredible artists and creative people. And connected to that is the legacy that Mel Brown left us by his influence and his generosity in accepting people of all backgrounds and musical experiences to sit in with him, to learn from him. This festival and symposium was born out of an idea that really came from Carlos around elevating music, but then I took it to the level of, well, how can I, as a white privileged person in a position of power in a university, how can we address what we think are systemic issues in our university? And the key issue, the elephant in the room, if you will, is that our program privileges the music of Eurocentric white composers, most of whom are dead, and a little bit of jazz. I have to say, though, that since the opening of our community music program, there's been a wider lane for musical genres of all different backgrounds and styles. That to say, there's still an imbalance in the racial makeup of our professors and our student body. Carlos, I really am grateful to be working with you, and I value what you're doing already in this project that is making it come alive and making it exciting for our community.
Well, thank you, Lee. This is very exciting. I'm honored and I'm grateful to be a part of a team of people who share this vision, bringing and highlighting and featuring Black music in Kitchener-Waterloo with Mel Brown and his legacy and his indelible musical contributions that he brought with him, and his history and his knowledge of music, blues, and what he did for the community here, building upon his foundation, building upon the roots that he brought to Kitchener-Waterloo through his music and his passion of music and so on. There's a 3-day festival happening May 27th to 29th and happening at 3 different locations. The Jazz Room on May 27th, the KPL, Kitchener Public Library, on the 28th, and the Museum on the 29th. It's going to be featuring different musical acts, different genres of music, Black music, which will include a blues, and we're happy and delighted to and proud to say that Miss Angel Brown will be the headliner for the whole festival. So she'll be performing along with Errol Blackwood, the Waterloo Region Mass Choir, Alysha Brilla, Joni NehRita, Rufus John, Akaya, and hopefully we'll have Glenn Lewis, a Grammy Award winner, and Miranda Love, who's also a Juno Award winner, performing the whole weekend. So we're going to be focusing on and highlighting these aspects of Black music, which again was built upon the foundation of Mr. Mel Brown in the Kitchener-Waterloo region.
No sense jiving, I'm just your fool. Alrighty then.
As a graduate of Wilfrid Laurier University and a former art instructor there as well, I was so delighted to learn that the university's Venerable Music program is supporting a festival and celebration of this kind. I have so many fond memories of seeing Mel Brown perform live right here in this area at venues like Pop the Gator and Lulu's Roadhouse. I saw him so many times, and those concerts are still so vivid for me.
Marshall, I really enjoyed traveling around from venue to venue and hearing live music again. It was very exciting to me, and it reminded me why we go and do this. Okay, I'm going to tell you a funny story. My cousin Matt, hi Matt, made me a fake ID when I was a teenager so I could get into Pop the Gator and enjoy some of this live music, including Mel Brown. Don't worry, I wasn't using it to drink. I was just a music nerd that wanted to go and see shows. And I learned a lot. Like, there were a lot of names and places in Brown's vibrant past, and he'd been playing music and performing since his childhood.
We just marvel at the long list of diverse artists Mel Brown recorded and performed with in his illustrious career. And we're talking about names like John Lee Hooker, Albert Collins, James Brown, Doris Day, Sonny Boy Williamson, Sam Cooke, Chuck Berry, Lightning Hopkins, Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Buddy Guy, Snooky Pryor, T-Bone Walker, Bobby Blue Bland, Albert King, Van Morrison, Sonny and Cher, David Bowie, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson.
Many local fans have long wondered why Mel Brown, a renowned guitarist who had collaborated with all the greats, decided to put down his roots in the area.
So Brown attempted to answer this question many years ago in an interview. What he said was, "That's the most asked question. I can't give a reason as to why I like it here." It was like a calling of the gods, I guess you could say. I don't want to say it's the greatest city in the world or nothing, but it's spiritually motivated.
Pop the Gator, a popular nightclub in Kitchener, became synonymous with Mel Brown as he hosted a blues jam every Wednesday night with his band The Home Wreckers in the late 1980s and early 1990s. It was there that local blues fans discovered America's loss was Canada's gain, as Mel Brown settled into a house on Cameron Street in downtown Kitchener.
Marshall and I invited ourselves into the inner sanctum of Glenn Smith's home, which looks more like a 20th century music museum.
Glenn Smith provided us with some tremendous personal insight into how KW became Mel Brown's adopted home.
Oh, now you're ready. Hello, Glenn Smith here from Ethel's Lounge, opened in 1994, and hopefully we can be there for many, many, many years. Before this life, though, I had another life as running blues bars and bands in this town a long time ago. And one of the smarter moves in hindsight and luckier moves was bringing Mel Brown to town, which led to a whole other set of stories and turned into a whole animal and a monster all onto its own. So this is the story of Mel Brown coming to KW. I was familiar with Mel Brown back in the very early 70s. He was a guitar player of renown. He played with Bobby Blue Bland. That's when I found him. Before that, he had played with Jackie Wilson, and he had been involved with music for a long time. I only became aware of him again in the 70s. And then I didn't know the man then. I just saw him on stage playing. I saw him in Toronto at the Island Blues Festival in 74. And in hindsight, I look back at some of the movies. I used to walk around with an 8mm movie camera all the time. And I saw that I had movies of Mel way back then, what I wasn't aware of. But when I saw him again, I was in Texas at Antone's in the mid-'80s. And I was leaving one night. The lights were up at the club, and somebody was still on stage playing guitar. It was the end of the evening. And I said, "Who's that?" And I turned around, and this man playing guitar by himself, electric guitar, was just staring into the abyss, and he was playing it. And they said, "Oh, that's Mel. He always plays guitar as people are leaving the club." And I was flabbergasted how awesome it was, one guy with a guitar playing by himself. So I went back in, and we got talking, and they have really tough liquor laws in Texas, so when it's time to go, you have to get out of the club. And the liquor inspectors in Austin love closing clubs down because you're not adhering to their liquor laws. So I didn't have much time that night, and Mel said we'll meet up the next day, which we did. And we were driving around, and he was showing me stuff, and we got talking, and it just started. That was day one of a friendship then that went on for a whole bunch of years after that. He then, as I had a bar upstairs of the Mayfair Hotel in 87, it was called the Hoodoo Lounge. After I'd booked shows at the Kitchener Legion in 85 or so, and I started by doing it and to see how well it would go, and it went well enough that I was actually booking blues bands in this town 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which was crazy in hindsight that it had legs enough to do that, but people were coming out. And Mel Brown came up with a lady, her name was Angela Straley, and she was a singer from Antone's, and basically the Antone's house band, which was George Raines, who still plays with Jimmy Vaughan, Denny Freeman, who was a guitar player, who then went on. He was in Bob Dylan's band for about 8 years. He's on about 6 of his records. Sarah Brown and Mel Brown, and it was an amazing group. And that would have been about 87. And in those days, we used to do a picnic out in Frogs Hollow out in Doon in the summer. And Mel and that band were in town right when we were doing that. That was on a Sunday. And they went out there to play and loved it. And then I started realizing what Mel loved about this community. And then about a year or so later, he had another band called Silent Partners, which was just a 3-piece, drums, bass, and Mel on guitar, and sometimes on organ, that came up. And they played the Gator in like 89. And that was that. And then when I went to Texas again later after that, I saw Mel again. And then that's where we were out driving around again. We went out to Willie Nelson's golf course. And when we were out there, I said to Mel, I said, I got this club now, Pop the Gator. I need a house band. Would you think about coming up, moving up, and run the house band? And he said, okay. That was it. That was the whole thing. And a month or so later, we were having our Christmas party at the Walper Hotel. I remember looking out the window, it was snowing out, and this big Delta 88 pulled up, and Mel Brown was here. That was the beginning. And when Mel came to town, at the time, once he said yes, you then have to figure out, how am I going to deal with this? Where's he going to live? How much can I pay him? How's he going to make a living? I don't want to disappoint him. He said yes, you know. When I discovered later, he had moved around quite a bit. He's from Mississippi, went to California early in his career, found out he wasn't good enough, went back to Mississippi, worked a lot harder. Back in the early 60s, he was touring with Etta James all over the South and Mississippi, which was a whole learning experience for him at the time, because Etta James had a bad addiction and she didn't show up at every gig. Him and the band were in one station wagon and she was in another one, and they'd go to a club and play the opening act, hoping Etta would show up, and not every night did she. And so some nights they got chased out of the club without getting paid. But that was a learning experience for him. He learned a lot. And then he was back to California, and then he was living in Nashville, and then he was living in Austin, Texas, and then I showed up. Now, this is all what I found out later. Is it might have been, I was looking for a guitar player to run a house band, and I wasn't just going to ask some guy from Toronto, to be my house band guitar player. It was an authentic blues club that I was running with authentic, top-notch acts, and I was going for someone that had the ability to play guitar and run the band and be an asset to the club. So I was only, somebody of Mel's caliber fit that perfect, because the guy had, all the chops, knew how to play organ, could play any instrument. And he may have been looking for a change in his life right at the time I showed up and looking for a band leader. So it worked out for both of us, and probably why he said yes at that time, because Austin, for its reputation for music and everything else, has 500 bars that book music, but there's 10,000 bands all looking for a gig. So he was one of the many fish in a big pond, where he moved to Kitchener. He was the big fish in a small pond, and he was the king, and it was the real deal. Bands would come into town that were from all over the States and I'd say blah, blah, blah. Mel will get up and do a set, and they go, Mel Brown? He lives here? And then would go into why? And I'd say, why not? The only reason things don't work is that you don't make it work. And I got tired of that very early in my life. I lived in KW all my life, where people would say, oh, well, you can't do it in Kitchener. I go, why not? The only reason you can't do it is you didn't try. And so Mel, instantly we shot up in everyone's regard as to the quality of what we were playing. And some bands, Albert Collins and Buddy Guy, who had played with Mel on records through the years, instantly I would have a shot at getting them to play here, where they may never have, as their prices were going higher, as their careers were getting bigger in the 80s. And Mel helped in a big way. So, and then I found out that he loved the people in this town. When I grew up in Kitchener in the 60s, there wasn't a lot of black people. There wasn't, a very integrated community. It was like a lot of old white German guys. So, which I love bringing Mel into, because instantly I like to shake things up sometimes, and Mel was a shaker. So he loved the people, loved all the young, beautiful ladies in this town, and he loved the weed. We had some of the best weed anywhere, and Mel dove into that head first, and he enjoyed all he could find. So now that it's legal, we can talk more about it. He loved it here, and for all the years he lived here, even when he passed away, I remember I said, well, it looks like I'm going to Mississippi for a funeral. And he's still buried here on Memory Gardens going out to Guelph. So every time I go by, I honk my horn, so let him know I'm still around. But no, he loved KW, and consequently KW loved him back. I think he enjoyed life here. He was also at an age where he could not have to be on the road all the time, driving to gigs and moving around, not making any money, and he could settle down here, make enough dough playing, for me one night, somewhere in Guelph the next night, somewhere else another night, and he could pick and choose where he played. It was close enough to Toronto that the Toronto Blues Society got very enamored with Mel, and they were putting events around him and showcasing him, and he probably felt special, and they all treated him good, and he loved everybody. So
we asked Glenn Smith if he had a favorite concert memory at Pop the Gator,
and here's what he had to share with us.
When Albert Collins came to town, Albert Collins had a part of his show was a thing where he had a 200-foot guitar cord, and he would play and walk through the audience. He was known to walk out the front of a club. Buddy Guy does the same thing. It all came from a guitar player in New Orleans in the 50s. Magic Slim used to do this. And but one night, Albert Collins had saw the Cafe Mozart across the street from Ethel's that had all the German decadent bakery and big creamy donuts, and he wanted one. And well, the band was playing, and this is a packed house. Albert Collins walked down the front stairs of Pop the Gator and was going across the street with his guitar cord, and cars are driving over it to go get a donut. And he realized either he's running out of cord or his guitar cord getting run over wasn't a good idea. Mel Brown had just pulled up at that time, and he knew Mel. He said, "Hey, here, Mel," and he handed him a guitar mid-song. Without skipping a beat, Mel Brown now had to imitate another guitar player who has a very distinctive sound. No one plays like Albert Collins, because he puts the capo way up on the neck and he has a whole sound of his own. And Mel played it and nailed it so good that as Mel now walked up the stairs of the club to go be in the club full of people and the band just cooking, this guy had horns and everything, well, Albert Collins is across the street buying a donut. But people didn't even know it was a different guy. When Mel Brown walked in, the place lit up, and it was just wild because they were all laughing that they had been fooled, that it was a whole other... One guy walks out playing and another guy comes back in, but he's playing the same style. So nights like that are irreplaceable.
Hey, Sara, let's head to the Jazz Room for the opening night gala, an evening of R&B, soul, and global roots fusion.
I'm very excited to see the performances by Joni NehRita, Alysha Brilla, and Rufus John.
So, welcome to the Mel Brown Music Festival. Yes. This is a momentous occasion. I want y'all to put your hands together and give a big Mel Brown welcome to Joni NehRita.
question is, I'm going to need Kleenex because I think it's going to be an emotional night. You know that I am ready. When you fall too, I'm not gonna run. When life feels too heavy, when you come undone, you'll have a place where you belong. Everyone's lost uncertain. We all have days, we have scars. Only way to stop hearts from hurting is to lay down
At the Jazz Room, we felt really fortunate to be able to go backstage and chat with some of the performers.
Here we speak to Joni NehRita.
She talks about creating her new record and what it was like to perform those new songs live. We also ask her about the song Perfectly Imperfect, which was such a beautiful, amazing song to hear live in the Jazz Room.
And it's funny, with this interview, you can hear Carlos Morgan in the background about to introduce Alysha Brilla, and he's talking about the rest of the festival.
Yeah, I mean, most of it was written during the pandemic and recorded over the pandemic because I had just started recording my album before the pandemic hit, and then it was like my producer and engineer pulled out because, you know, pandemic, So I just decided to carry on by myself at home, and most of the album is just me tinkering away in my room over a very long time. And yeah, I just looked at all the stuff that I had written over the last 2.5 years and thought, okay, what's the stuff that I really want to offer for my first band show back, you know? I wonder this sometimes, karmically or like energetically, was my brain like, let's make a really hard, you know, like it's chordy and there's odd bars and stuff, so that when you perform it, you have to remind yourself that you're not going to maybe get it perfect, and you have to make peace with that. So every time I sing it, it's just actually like really a relief to like just be myself and be okay with whatever happens. As long as I'm singing from the heart, it doesn't matter if I sing a wrong note or I play a bum chord, you know. I mean, that's why I got so emotional. You saw me crying. It's like, oh, there's the harmony, but I'm not singing it for an overdub on an album. She's singing it, and wow, there's that bass part, and yeah, it's humbling. It's a beautiful thing, and I maybe missed it more than I realized. It's powerful. Yeah. I came in when Rufus was doing his sound check, and I was like, oh, music, right? There's music, and then there's like, oh, yeah, it's amazing.
Singer-songwriter, producer. She is going to be releasing her new album, Circle. She is 2022 Key Change Artist, top 22 women artists to watch in 2022. I love this woman, I love her, I'm a huge fan of hers, and I am so happy to have her, happy to have Joni, and happy to have Rufus. And again, they're doing all original music. So, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, put your hands together for Alysha Brilla.
Man, it feels so good to be here, you know what I'm saying? We've been waiting for 2 years to be here, you know what I'm saying? And we're finally doing it. Yeah.
I'm going to invite my youngest sister, Tamira Mohammed, up to the stage. Okay. Tamira, Grima said you can use his mic. Okay. So, Tamira said she'd come up and sing as long as what? Oh. As long as everyone else in the crowd sings along. Right? I think that was the vibe. So we're going to do a song called Ahimsa. And this is a song that I wrote believe it or not, 7 years ago, I thought, damn, the world is fucked up right now. 7 years ago, folks. And, well, I don't want to say I'm Nostradamus or anything, but I knew that we needed help. And so this song came out of that. But ahimsa in Sanskrit is the concept, it's the whole philosophy of nonviolence. And what I love about Sanskrit, amongst other indigenous languages around the world, is that there's so many words that have such conjoined meaning of things, and this is one of them. Ahimsa encapsulates that whole philosophy. And so we're going to sing this tonight, and we're going to dedicate it to all of your hearts, as well as the grief that I think the world collectively is feeling a lot. So I hope you'll sing along. And it goes, ahimsa, ahimsa, ahimsa. Beautiful. Yes. Ahimsa, ahimsa, ahimsa. You sound beautiful. I'll cue you in. Inside my head, oh, inside my head, yeah. Inside my head, oh, war rages on. This world is mad, oh, this world is mad, this world is mad, but I still sing a song. You know that I'm still singing a song because I can feel the coming and I can hear it. I hear them calling please. Sara Mohammed, everybody. I'm wondering, ahimsa. Oh, I'm wondering, ahimsa. I'm wondering, where is the rainbow? Where is that particle after the storms I've weathered and the stories I've been told? Now I'm wondering, ahimsa. Oh, I'm wondering, I'm wondering, where is the rainbow? Where is that particle after the storms I've weathered and the stories I've told?
Alysha's song Ahimsa was incredibly moving to see live. I was just standing feet from her, and I really felt that message of nonviolence. Let's hold each other up. We can all do better.
And I loved the fun excitement of being backstage. We hung out with Sammy Duke, Garima, and Alysha Brilla. And I want to share, I've known who Garima is for years and years. I love seeing him perform in Victoria Park or the St. Jacobs Farmers Market. I've tried to strike up conversations with him over the years, and he's always very appreciative and says thank you for coming out to the event and that. But he really is a man of few words. So I think Sara and I were both really struck by the fact that he really opened up for us backstage. And anyways, you can hear it for yourself.
Sounds good. My name's Sammy Duke. I've been playing Alysha. We've actually known each other since high school, believe it or not, but we've been kind of playing music on and off for probably 15 years. I think probably 11 years on like a serious note, you know, that kind of thing. And I was joining her on the bass and cajon today. We just had a freaking dance party. That was fun. We are pumped. I'm sweating like a dog right now. Well, Alysha, there's a few songs that we've been playing for a long time that they're always like, you know, very, very powerful songs, great messages that always go well in terms of audiences. And a few of the tunes that we played tonight were actually some from her brand new record as well. And the record really was born out of the idea of isolation, you know, during this whole pandemic era. Obviously, you know, a lot of people are feeling isolated. She's no exception to that. Music industry has, of course, been an interesting time for that. So just to be able to project this music out to fresh audiences, to be able to join Alysha with spreading these great messages, be able to just have the pent-up energy of everyone in the room ready to just go right back to the world of live music. It was just an absolute blessing, what can I say?
So Sammy's referring to a moment where Alysha is playing a really great rhythm. Sammy and Garima are playing a beat, and Carlos later told us he was overcome with emotion to get on stage and asked Alysha permission, and she said, of course. And here's the outcome.
Everybody,
Yeah, from the moment Carlos Morgan took the stage, that jazz room was on fire. And for days afterward, Coral Andrews of FM 98.5, she raved and raved about this show. And you can imagine how many shows Coral has seen at the jazz room over the years. She said she's seen many, many. But she said all those people dancing and shouting and singing together, she's never seen anything like that at the jazz room.
I think we can both agree, Marshall, that we were in the presence of magic.
Yeah, we sure were. Speaking of magic, Grima Harvey brought so much to this festival, and we asked Sammy Duke what it's like to perform with a musician like Grima.
Oh, Grima Harvey brings just an unfathomable spirit unlike anyone else in the entire southern Ontario, as far as I'm concerned. He is an absolute master of his craft, an absolute joyous heart, and just completely, and so humble with his gifts as well. He dedicates everything to the Most High. He's just the absolute greatest person in the world to work with. Very blessed to be his friend and his fellow musician.
Thank you. My name is Grima Harvey, and I am also a musician of KW and abroad. Well, my singing comes from a special place of listening to roots reggae music and to traditional South African music. So I bring that to the table, and roots reggae music and African music is very deep, and I love that music because, like, I represent that. My drumming started when I was very young. I started on pots and pans, and then when I was in the teenager years, I started doing djembe drumming, and self-taught and taught by other drummers. I've been around with a lot of people, and it's just, I play other instruments, but the drum is my main, and it's a beautiful thing.
After the show, we shared with Alysha that we really enjoyed hearing her harmonize with her sister, and here's what she had to say.
Oh man, well, it was hard for me to not cry when I was singing with her because we sing together a lot. I have 3 sisters who are here, and we all sing together a lot. And we often do cry when we sing, even at home when we're just harmonizing. And it's a really important gel for our hearts, and keeps our relationship strong, I think. So doing it on stage feels like a really sweet way of sharing that with everyone else, just what comes naturally for us through music. I met Sammy in high school. We were both about 15 or 16, I had an 18th birthday party. I invited a lot of people, and he was the only one who came. And this is before I got any Junos or anything like that. I'm talking about the birthday party story. My 18th birthday, where you were the only one who came. He laughs. But friends for life, yeah, for sure. And then Grima, I also met on the street. Actually, he was jamming with his djembe, and I told him I'm a musician, and said we should jam together. And that was also about 12 years ago or so. And the 3 of us are very much like a set family, truly, now. You know, it's been 2 years since I've performed at all, and that was what I used to live for. That was like if I was lucky enough for that to happen at a show, that's like the biggest, most beautiful high I could possibly experience in my life. And so when I start to see the people come to the dance floor, and like you said, you feel the energy build, it feels like alchemy. It feels like taking what so often for me is a sad heart in this world, and I'm sure for a lot of people, and seeing visually how music is a transforming modality. Yeah, it was special. Carlos is an incredible performer, and it's wild because he's emceeing and he organized the festival, and he's very humble. But, you know, I had mentioned that when I was 15, would go to the Still and jam, and that's how I came to know Mel Brown. And Carlos used to go to that jam as well. So I'd watch him, and now here we are.
I found myself in a situation where I was hanging out with some cats and making poor choices. And in making poor choices, you know, I found myself in trouble from time to time. And this one particular time I found myself in some serious trouble. And, you know, we all got picked up in that situation. And it was the point in my life where I knew I had to go left or I had to go right. But the point is, I knew I didn't want to be where I was in that moment ever again. So I chose a different path instead of doing all the things that, you know, my mom had. You know, when your mom chirps in your ear, as an adult, you understand and appreciate those gems and that knowledge. But when you're like 15, 16, 17, 18, you're like, Ma, you're old. Ma, I hear you, but you're not really hearing her. And she raised 4 of us on her own. There was good times, there was bad times, but there was always love amongst the struggle. I grew up by Conestoga Mall, just not too far from here. Yeah, and our house in that neighborhood was a safe space for kids to come, just relax. Sister John can cook, so Sister John, you knew if you went to the John's house, you had a good meal to eat. But regardless, because it was just a single mother, she worked at night. And because she worked at night, I could do whatever I wanted at night. And, you know, idle minds with, you know, young kids. It's only a matter of time before, you know, they find that group of kids that are outside during this time. And then you find yourself doing the things that kids that are outside doing during that time, you find yourself doing. Which is what got me in a lot of trouble. So while I was sitting, because I had nowhere else to go, I decided to write this song called The Reason. It's for my mom.
I did take in the documentary, and again, like, just the energy that this man had, and how he exuded love, and from what I saw, just a man that wanted people to appreciate music the way that he appreciated music. And he came from a place where he could have picked any musician in the world, but he chose to come here, and he's like, if I'm going to choose to live here, I'm going to take these cats under my wing, and I'm going to show them a way. And again, that's just the brilliance of that man and how he touched lives just by doing what he loved. The community embraced him, which I think was a great thing, because it could have gone a number of different ways, but they embraced him, and he took it and ran with it. And a lot of great musicians were spawned from either the people that he touched or people that literally were connected to him.
We asked Rufus about playing with his band, Mama's Kitchen.
Mama's Kitchen. Again, like, it's been a while for collecting or finding my guys. But now that I have my guys, it's a family, and that's really what I wanted, was a family. Again, Mama's Kitchen says it all. It's really, I want to give people the same feeling literally I get when I walk into my mom's kitchen. It's just a place of safety, comfort, love, everything. And I want people to leave with that same feeling when they come and see me. And I've taken time to find the members of the band to allow us, I shouldn't say me, because it's not me, it's us, to allow us to do that. This is what it's about. This is, at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's not about her, it's not about that person, it's about the collective. Carlos is an undeniable force that you can't reckon with. He owns that stage when he's on there. I remember Carlos when I was a teenager, coming up, watching that man do what he does, and he's definitely one of my inspirations coming up in this community.
So after the whole night was over, Sara and I caught up with Carlos Morgan and shared with him that we had just been backstage with Rufus John, and we all agreed that Carlos with this show tonight. He hit a home run.
Thank you so much. This has been a great evening. I'm excited. It's so wonderful to see all the people, the community come out, supporting the artists, supporting the festival, supporting this initiative, the inaugural festival of the Mel Brown Festival, and I'm just so grateful. I'm so appreciative. Thank you both, Sara and Marshall, for all the support that you've been given this festival so far. And yeah, I'm having a good time. I was nervous, but I was like, okay, but you know what, just seeing the energy and the people just smiling and enjoying the music, and just hearing live music again like this. And it's focusing on Black music, the Black artists in Kitchener and Waterloo. Yeah, this is exciting.
So you did that. Carlos took a moment to reflect on jumping up on stage and performing with Alysha Brilla tonight.
Man, when I heard them doing her song, and the rhythm had such a dance hall reggae vibe to it, I was like, oh, hell no, you ain't gonna do this and I ain't gonna jump on the mic. So I just said, Alysha could have come up, and she just said, come up. And so I was like, let me do my thing and go on them way there and just throwing that vibe, and that was fun. Because I didn't want to perform this weekend. I just wanted to just focus on supporting the artists and supporting the cause and the festival. But I'm hearing that groove, I'm like, okay, I'll do a little bit. So it was fun.
Before heading home, Sara and I stopped at the merchandise table, and that's where we met artist Ken Daley, whose beautiful painting adorns the official t-shirt of the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium.
We asked Ken all about his life as an artist, as well as the inspiration behind the painting of Mel Brown. We also wanted to know what it felt like to see everyone walking around wearing these t-shirts with his art on it.
So my name is Ken Daley, and I'm an illustrator and an artist, and I love doing a lot of musical themed artwork. So I do a lot of jazz and blues images and musical themed and Caribbean artwork as well. I'm also a children's book illustrator, so I do illustrations for children's books, and I've been doing that for a couple of years now. I found out that Mel Brown is actually from Jackson, Mississippi, and I had the opportunity to live in Jackson, Mississippi for about 3 years. And so that was actually some of the inspiration in this piece. In Mississippi, there's a lot of juke joints, and apparently that's where he actually started playing, was actually in the juke joints. So I wanted to kind of show that in the artwork. So you can see like a juke joint behind him, and he's playing the guitar there. So, and also Jax is just like a symbol to Jackson, Mississippi. So, and Jax is also a beer brand in Mississippi. So I use that as inspiration too. Yeah. Like I wanted to kind of keep it in like reds, blues, and yellows. So like a primary scheme, just to kind of represent like the grittiness as well, like with blues and my inspiration when I work, I like a lot of like abstract realism and impressionistic works. So that's some of my inspiration to create this piece too. Like I'm so happy how they turned out, because actually today's the first time I actually seen the t-shirt. So I'm so glad and actually just amazed that my work is being seen around and people are actually responding to it, and it's really happy. I'm really happy about that.
Leaving the jazz room that night and stepping out into the rain, Marshall and I felt elated having had this magical live music experience in this small but full venue of the jazz room.
I think I had not been to a live concert in 3 years, and this was really an experience that I had no idea that I missed so much. For me personally, walking back into Wilfrid Laurier after 15 years, I had been a student there for many years, and then I was an instructor in the fine arts program. Reconnecting with that campus and meeting Lee and Carlos was really that was a personal journey for me just in itself.
Join us next week for part 2 of our special 3-part series on the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium. We'll be visiting the Symposium, and we'll hear from many voices like Dr. Brent Hagerman of Wilfrid Laurier University.
And then it's developed into this sort of symposium and festival that's on the one hand celebrating the music of Mel Brown, the legacy of Mel Brown, the festival itself, celebrating black artists, contemporary black artists. And the symposium, the part that I'm doing in it, is really putting a spotlight on the legacy of Mel Brown in Kitchener-Waterloo.
We hear from keynote speaker and spoken word artist, Dr. Afua Cooper.
Thank you, Lee, for such a warm introduction. Thank you all for coming out. And I have made it a part of my presentation to honor my African ancestors. You know, they died, they crossed the Middle Passage, they were brutalized. And somehow somebody survived that I could be here. I often think of it. I said someone survived. Someone survived the crossing of that ocean. Someone survived the brutality in the homes of the enslaved on the plantation. And so here I am. And that to me is a miracle because it could have been otherwise.
We also hear from Sam Navy, who curated the Emerging Artists Showcase at the KPL. It's going to be night of blues, rock and funk, world Afro, reggae, and hip-hop, featuring artists like Glenn Marias and the Mojo Train, Akaya, and Havaya Mighty at the Kitchener Public Library main lounge. This is a major transformation of this space, and we were so excited to be a part of it.
So we're here at Maxwell's Music House. I'm Sam Navy, curator of TriCityHipHop.com. I'm a local hip-hop artist, and we just heard John Corbin say that hip-hop is power, and I think that's so true. Hip-hop is a way that marginalized communities have been able to take back power, speak truth to power. It's a very political genre, and it's a very personal genre. We're going to see a lot more of that tonight at the Kitchener Public Library when we've got our Emerging Artist Showcase.
Join us next week for episode 2 of the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium, and so much more.
Bonn Park is made possible with the support of the Kitchener Public Library and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation.
Our show is produced by Sarah Geidlinger
and Marshall Ward,
with audio engineering by Sarah Geidlinger.
Bonn Park's original music is by Alan Lung.